back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. So what are you looking at here? Well, for starters, I've been trying to play control and gone with a lot of different ideas. I've tried green, black, blue is my color combination. I've tried 5-color control. I've tried blue, black, white. And what I've run into is that I am consistently behind my opponents in mana. And one of the key aspects for a control deck is that you need to essentially ramp ahead of your opponent, because you need enough mana to both play either a threat or make a meaningful game state advancement, somehow develop, and at the same time hold up enough mana to counterspell. One of the ways that that's accomplished in formats like Legacy, for example, is with cards like Daze and Force of Will. In other words, where you're able to develop with all of your mana and still hold up different types of interactive counters. And that is not the worst. Obviously, we're going to play Force of Will in pretty much any format that it's legal, that we're playing blue. I think that goes without saying, because it allows you to do that. But in Commander, you don't get as many of those cards, and obviously you only get one, and then a very close imitator in the Force of Negation package. But what you do get actually is quite a few other Force of Will-like effects. Now, I'm not running Daze. I did mention it in Legacy, but it's a different format that doesn't have a bunch of, it doesn't have like Soul Ring draws and things of that nature. Not to say Daze is bad in Commander, but it's a lot less reliable. And also, of course, there's a big difference between playing 4 Dazes, where you're apt to see one in the first couple of turns, versus one in your 100-card deck. You might not see one until much later in the game, and at that point it can often be dead. So I'm not going to run that, but what we do have is all the nonsense cards that piggyback off having a commander in place. So for example, Fierce Guardianship, Deadly Rograkh, Deflecting Swat. But those aren't the only ones that are free and piggyback off having a commander, because in red you also get Flare of Duplication if your commander's cheap enough. It's essentially a fork, but it is a fork, but the fact that you can copy counter magic means that you can play it as a counter spell often. Of course, if your opponent goes like Swamp, Dark Ritual, Necropotence, copying their Dark Ritual may not do much of anything for you in that situation. But if you're the person playing the Necropotence in that, and your opponent's playing their own counterspell, then suddenly this card feels like a Force of Will that you can play cheaply. And as it turns out, there is a very cheap red commander. In fact, the bargain basement lowest cost commander in the format, Rog. And finally, there's the other cheaty counterspell, Force of Will Light, which is this Flare of Denial. Again, you need a very cheap blue creature to make it good, but there are some cheap blue creatures that we desire to play in a control deck anyway. Snapcaster Mage, Thieving Skydiver, and Trinket Mage being at the top, Spellseeker being right up in there. And then, with a 3-mana commander, that's a bit... Psychic Frog, I also forgot to mention. But anyway, with a 3-mana commander, Silas Renn, who's actually a artifact, but it's a blue and black commander. For 3 mana, that's not too bad. So you can tap out to play this, but you're not really tapped out, provided it resolves, because you have a Flare of Denial up. So you don't just you spend 3 mana for Silas Renn, they spend 3 mana for, I'll say it again, Necropotence, and you don't just instantly lose a game on the spot, because once that card resolves, most games you will have lost, unless your opponent is having mana problems and you are significantly ahead on mana and you have an engine. If you have both of those things, then you can maybe beat a Necro, but like Necro for Necro, Necro versus One Ring, something like that. But or if maybe you've locked them, you've made things really hard for them with a Winter Orb and they haven't had enough artifact mana to really get going, that could be a scenario. Like, for example, you've got a Winter Orb Dak Faden running, or a Ready, then possibly you can beat a Necro. But in general, you're dead if that card resolves. And Silas Renn means that having a cheap card that you could you don't always Flare of Denial immediately after playing it. You could play it much later in the game, but just having that kind of like additional threat around means. And again, we have the Thieving Skydivers and so forth that we can also play it off of. Means that we just have more Force of Will effects, and that's very, very important because this format plays out most similarly to Vintage, possibly somewhat similar to Legacy, but in terms of like power level and disgusting like development and speed, this format's most similar to Vintage, and it's a problem actually. So in my view, and this is obviously you're here to my channel to hear my views, so that's why. So just take everything I say with that caveat. But in my opinion, it is a problem. It is a problem in the sense that there's an old saying for Vintage, which is that force of will is the glue that holds Vintage together. Essentially, the reason why the format is interesting and dynamic and isn't just completely dominated by like turn 1 kill decks, like or turn 2 kill decks, like for example, what is it? Doomsday, for example, would be a good one. But the reason why it's not completely just utterly dominated by decks that are that consistent and that strong is that, Force of Will is always a threat and gives the ability for decks like that to lose. And because they have to put in answers to that, that opens the window up for other decks to hose, like mono white and so on and so forth. So that is essentially what we're... that's what makes Vintage so sweet, is that in a way, for those of you who enjoy it, is that it's insanely powerful, but it's also fairly well balanced by all these different competing elements that you have to do crazy things, but also protect yourself from them. And Commander, it struggles a little bit more to consistently protect yourself, actually. Doing the crazy things is the easier part in Commander. Not dying to them is the harder part. And that's because there are a lot of cards that can imitate each other, but very few cards that can imitate each other, which fall into the Force of Will or the cheap interactive save me on turn 0 or turn 1 category. So what I mean by that, like for example, Time Twister, Wheel of Fortune, Windfall, Necropotence. There's 4 different cards that all cost 3 mana that can all just like completely draw a berserk number of cards. We could throw like maybe Jessica's Will in there. There's probably others that I'm not thinking of, but just ridiculous amounts of cards for really cheap. But how many different, like as I said, I literally, as far as I can tell, every reasonable Force of Will that you could play in Commander. This one requires me to spend 3 mana on this guy first, so we won't really count him. So basically, I've got Force of Will and Force of Negation to stop me from losing on turn 0. 2 cards, that's it. But they can run any of those cards I just listed, and there's plenty of others, like you can get turn 1 ring and all kinds of other nasty stuff. And then, on top of the fact that I only have 2 Force of Wills on turn 1, if I'm playing first, I can get Rog out, and then suddenly it feels like I have a few more, because I get access to Deflecting Swat, Flare of Duplication, I get access to Fierce Guardianship, and in some cases, if it's like a creature-based combo that has to stay on the board, I get access to Rollick. And so I go from having 2 Force of Wills if I'm going second, to having 6 sort of Force of Wills, roughly Force of Wills, if I'm going 6 or 7, depending on how you look at that, if I'm going first. But it gets even better if I run cards like Duress, Inquisition, and Thoughtseize, because those, while not Force of Will, they can be disruptive enough. They can slice out the part of the, like for example, if my opponent mulligans to 3 cards, and their hand is, they've mulliganed to 3, and their hand is Swamp, Dark Ritual, Necropotence. If I can duress one of those cards away, I obviously can't take the Swamp, but if I take the Necro or the Ritual, then there's a really good chance that this duress functioned as a Force of Will, essentially, by slicing out the card that would kill me. So that would almost make it like I have 10, and I'm playing Wash Away also to get at early commanders, but I have like 10 early game ways to not lose the game if I'm going first, and 2, to not lose the game if I'm going second. But that's all we get. So, but that's assuming my opponent's killing me on turn 1. Maybe they're not. Maybe it's not Swamp Ritual Necro. Maybe it's like something that requires a little more setup. And if that's the case, then perhaps I get a turn 1, and I can play the game. In which case, all my defenses come online. On top of all that, if I have fast mana, I can possibly get 2 mana down on turn 1. Then I can play like a mana leak or a counter spell or something. So my options like rise and rise as the turns come to defend myself from basically bullshit, right? From nonsense. So that's the thing that is critical for, I think, any deck trying to play control to function. And the problem that I was running into is that I was playing against this exact combination of commanders. I was playing against it, and they're playing combo decks. And the combo decks, I've looked them up to try to understand why was I having so much difficulty. Well, the combo decks with these commanders usually run about 29 lands, so they're very, very threat dense and land light. So they're not going to like brick out on like a series of top decks that are just land like that. That's an important thing that actually happens in a game when you're playing control. It's important that at some point in the game your opponent bricks for a couple of turns. Those are the turns that you rebuild so you can get your shields up, so you can accumulate defensive cards so that when they finally begin to start making plays again, you've got it covered. Or it allows you to build into finishing the game off. For example, like if you had a Crucible Strip Mine running, a couple of turns of them bricking might actually involve you. It might be the reverse problem where they're trying to find mana, and you're hammering away at their lands for a couple of turns and then getting into a great situation that way. But that just doesn't happen too often with that deck for any number of reasons. One, it's got a ton of card draw. It's got all the grossest stuff, more than what I have here, even though we're playing the same cards. But they have the biggest offenders, which is really Necropotence and the One Ring. Those are and Ad Nauseam, and I think they run as well. And they have Underworld Breach, which is also a hugely offensive card that you can't really, like, the Mana Screw plan doesn't work too well when your opponent can just win for 2 mana. And then on top of all that, and of course there's the Oracle Consult combo that they can put together off of 3 mana and just win. But then on top of all that, they've got access to, and this is the real problem, they've got access to all these cheap counters, along with many others. They play a ton of 1-drop, 1-cost counters and anti-counter tech, depending on their color combination. And they have a ton of fast mana. So they get to ramp really quick, play free defensive cards. So essentially, like old school, an old school equivalent would have been something along the lines of Necropotence in your Illusions Donate deck. And so you would have like Dark Rituals, Necropotence, Force of Will, Illusions Donate. And so what you would do is you would be the Necropotence deck that can Force Will the other Necropotence deck, and the combo deck that can outdraw the control deck. So you would just have all the same tools the control has to defend yourself, but you have better card draw, and you'd have all the same brokenness that the combo decks had, but you would have better defensive tools. And so that was like the key for the time. And this deck, their deck, when they play the combo version of these colors, it runs into the same issue where if you're not using the exact same commander combo and all the broken ramp that you get, mainly from Rograkh, if you're not using that, you're too slow, because one, you don't get like Mox Amber, Springleaf Drum, Cursive Opulence, Guild Artisan, a bunch of sort of busted nonsense that is nonsense because it's enabled by Rograkh. So you don't get access to that. And then in addition to that, you don't get to go first turn, land, play Rograkh for 0, start developing, doing whatever you're going to do, duress or whatever, but also have up, suddenly Fierce Guardianship's turned on, SWAT's turned on, Flares turns on, Rollick is turned on for 0 mana. You don't get to do that unless you're playing Rograkh. And by tapping into Silas, you get access to Rograkh and Fierce. So basically, what I was running into was that I could never win a counter war. I was slower than them, despite trying to be the ramp deck. And so I was a slower deck with more expensive counter spells, couldn't win a counter war. And then the opponent would just abuse the heck out of that. And, you know, of course I could get like nut draws, like, you know, first turn, Soul Ring, you know, Arcane Signet, blah, 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 and go off and then beat them. But I had to get those. And I had to get those going first often because they would like free counter my Soul Ring and that, and then suddenly I'm slowed down to a crawl. So I had to have all these things like line up because I couldn't compete because of Rograkh, because their access to Rograkh and all the things it enables. And so what I realized was, it's impossible. I am a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest against these opponents, and I'm trying hard to win. It wasn't that, but it's just that I have like a huge handicap to begin with because I'm not playing Rograkh and they are. And so I said, well, what if I play Rograkh? What happens then? You know, what if I play this color combination myself, or this commander combination myself, so that I have access to? I mean, the best way that Brian Weissman's really good at taking sort of everything I just said. Right, he's good at taking like a big idea and encapsulating it into a simple, like one sentence explanation. And he did that perfectly when I was chatting with him about this problem at one point through text, where he texted me back and he said, basically, he said, look, Rograkh can be anywhere from 3 to, you know, 4 Black Lotuses. I mean, and if you take a look at it, he's right. So like, let's say that we actually had to pay the hard cost, right? This is a 4-cost spell, a 3-cost spell, a 3-cost spell, another 3-cost spell. So there's your 4 Black Lotuses off just playing this card for 0 mana. You can just, I've had opening hands with like multiples of these lined up and been able to just completely abuse my opponent with free stuff. And on top of that, it can also be, it often can be, a Mox. So it's a bunch of Black Lotuses and multiple different like Moxen and Soul Ring effects as well. So it's like 4 Black Lotuses and 4 Mox/Soul Ring effects for 0. The card is insane. And I did not realize also, you know, it's card drawing engine with Call of the Ring. I did not realize, when I was looking at Tevesh Szat and Rograkh, I really thought Tevesh Szat was the I knew Rograkh was good and it was fueling a lot of this, but I figured Tevesh Szat was really the big offender because it's the one that provides me with all the cards that like lets that deck, that sort of engine run. But then I tried playing Tevesh Szat in other builds, multiple other builds. I've tried playing it with multiple other setups, and it's just never that good. There are often games where I barely play it or never play it, and I was thinking like, what is going on? And the answer was quite simply, Rograkh is broken, actually. It's between the two of them, because what would you rather have in your opening hand? Would you rather have an opening hand with a Black Lotus, or would just knowing nothing else, or an opening hand with a Brain Geyser? Well, I'd rather have an opening hand with a Lotus, obviously, because whatever else I'm doing, I'm going to be doing it faster and better that way. And Rograkh is that Black Lotus. On top of that, of course, there are other cards that I could be using that the combo deck uses that I don't use. For example, the 1 black instant that lets you sacrifice a creature in order to add 4 black mana to your mana pool is huge, right? Like first turn, the 1 ring or something is super gross. It's another way to get first turn Necro out. Dark Ritual's the other one. And of course, if I were playing those, you know, they would be strong in here, obviously, and, you know, be great for like a mid to late game Yogg-Will, where I'm like reverse adding all that mana to my mana pool and such. And I'm not saying that I won't ever put those cards in this deck, but the reason I'm not playing them, if you're curious, is simply that the deck's game plan here is to get access to the generally speaking free and generally speaking repeatable mana sources, as it is still a control deck and wants to maintain. It's not about like blasting the board with a first turn, with a first turn threat, but you'll do that obviously if you can. But it's more the case that you want to get set up as fast as you can and get your shields up as quickly as you can, like I was talking about earlier when it came to the Force of Will analogy. So that is something that you want to do repeatedly, like shields up. It's not like first, you don't want to just like dark ritual out a mana leak or something. Well, I don't know, that doesn't even make sense. But yeah, dark ritual, fierce guardianship. You'll make that play if you have to, but that's not what you're trying to do, right? So you would much rather like invest in a talisman, and then use that talisman to cast something, and generate and get that mana rebated to you multiple times throughout the course of the game. However, that said, I figured at first I built this deck like with no real regard for Silas Renn, and then later I was asking myself, well, can I take advantage of this card at all? Like, it feels kind of bad to just basically this is just a placeholder for, hey, I need to play blue and black. Really, this is my commander, and this card might as well not exist. And so later, I added a couple cards that play really nicely with him. I added Urza's Bauble, Mishra's Bauble, and Lotus Petal, which gives me another little early burst of speed sometimes, is pretty good with Yogg Will and so forth. But mostly because those baubles will, and also the baubles can be, turn Yawgmoth's Will into a cantrip or a double cantrip. But mainly because if I can get Silas Renn down early and start turning it sideways, then it turns it into a card drawing engine, as it allows you to recast artifacts in your graveyard. So you pick an artifact, so you recast Urza's Bauble, or you can use it as a mana source with Lotus Petal, and that's perfectly fine, very acceptable thing to do. And occasionally just having Lotus Petal means we'll be the evil, we'll go first turn Rograkh, Lotus Petal, Phyrexian Tower, sack, cast Necro on turn one, just a sort of build your own Dark Ritual, even though I'm not playing Dark Ritual in this deck, and still get some, gross and broken results. There are some other things that I've done with the deck. I have added Workshop in to try to capitalize on how just broken this card is, and Urborg to make it a little bit more palatable, as well as to pay for the Necropotence cost. Urborg is not the greatest in a control deck because you hate giving your opponent black mana. You're trying to like strip mine all their black mana so they don't kill you with Necro. Really, this is a card that a lot of the format sort of degenerates. If both players are playing black, the games are essentially a battle for Necropotence, but quite often. But having said all that, the power spike that having access to Workshop gives you, the potential power that it gives you, is I think too high to not play it. And if you're going to play it and you're playing Necro anyway, you should probably play Urborg. It's essentially one of those deals where it's like, I might help my opponent some of the time, and I might get bad draws some of the time, but when it's good, it's too good, and I need to use that. So it's the same reason that we're going to run CEDH Traders, for example. When it's good, it's too good, and when it's too good, and if I'm not doing something that's too good, then I might not be playing the game for very long, because my opponent will be doing too good things, and that will, kill me. So with that in mind, however, I'm not using my usual Gilded Lotus Thran Dynamo package. I'm actually just using a singleton, which is this Relic of Sauron. Relic of Sauron, it's essentially, it does everything I need a Gilded Lotus to do, which is tap to counter target spell. And it does it for one cheaper. And it also acts as a source of card advantage. If we flood out anywhere at any point, I can start putting mana into it to draw 2 and discard 1. That's card advantage and selection at the same time. That's better than Jamday Tome. Costs 1 less and sees 1 extra, which is really crazy for a mana source. And of course it's color fixing. It also has like a really nice, you can do Relic of Sauron, tap it, copy artifact it. It's not legendary, so you can get like pretty far ahead that way. And of course copy artifact is nuts with Cast Defiler and some other things. The other card that's in here that's interesting perhaps is Tezzeret Cruel Captain. I predict this card will be in 100% of commander decks. If not in 100% of commander decks, your deck must have a reason for it not to be in that deck. This card is absolutely nutty bonkers, ridiculous card, super OP, super powerful, because it tutors for Soul Ring, and then it pumps Soul, multi-taps. Like you can go first turn Mana Vault, tap the Mana Vault, cast Tezzeret, spin 0, untap the Mana Vault, and you have an untapped Mana Vault on turn 1. I mean, that's crazy. And you basically played this for 0. Or, first turn Mana Vault Tezzeret, search for Soul Ring, next turn untap the Mana Vault, and now you've got your Soul Ring. If you think like the Tezzeret's going to die, maybe that's the play. But either way, super bonkers card. Unfortunately, in some sense, it is not an artifact. It would actually be probably good and bad, but probably more on the good side if it was an artifact, but it's not, just like Karn. It would be better if it was an artifact, I think, in the format, because artifacts already have a bullseye on them, so it'd be easier to get rid of. You could just abrade it away. Instead, you can't, which is a problem. And yes, you can't workshop it out, but you can't also shut it down with a card and some other stuff, so it's pretty gross. And the pumping a creature or like growing the ultimate, you can ultimate like turbo fast. Remember, like, if this card comes down, you subtract 3 and you go get an artifact as 1 loyalty. Let's say you're going to play that artifact before it gets killed. So now it has 2 loyalty. So it's actually, it says -3, but it's really -2 if you think about it. And that just means that the next artifact you play, you can immediately tutor something else. And that's if you're willing to get rid of it. But in a deck like this, you often aren't. We've got Silas that can trigger it. We can trigger it for 0, and we can put together our like Bauble Silas thing if that's where we're at in the game to make it super good. But with that in mind, and also because of Trinket Mage, and also because of Saga, I'm also running a main deck defensive card against combo, against the actual combo version and other decks that are combo decks, in the form of Nihil Spellbomb. So I have like I said, those 3 ways to tutor for it outside of actually demonic tutoring for it or something. You have Tezzeret, Trinket Mage, you've got Saga. You go get Nihil Spellbomb, and if you have the mana, you can use the Nihil Spellbomb, very similar to the Urza's Baubles. You can Silas Renn. You can sack this thing to exile their graveyard, spend a black to draw a card, like on their turn or whatever, and then you attack with Silas Renn, and then for 1 mana you recast it. And for 1 black you sack it and draw a card. And the next turn, basically for 2 mana, so it's nowhere near as good as the Bauble, doing it for 0. But your opponent never gets a graveyard, right? And you can break it up if you need to, like, use 1 turn to cast it and then 1 turn to sack it. That's not as good. But again, you'll start drawing into mana sources and you'll start like winning. You'd have to be in a situation where this makes sense. But the fact that you can do it is very important, because we want multiple ways to make sure that we don't just want our Silas Renn to just be here to, like, off to the side here just as an enabler for this stuff. We'd like it to actually have some value. And of course, Silas Renn also, if your opponent kills your artifacts, like it also just retrieves them, right? Like, it makes it really hard to get rid of, like, if you can connect with this thing, it makes it real hard to get rid of your Soul Ring. Like, it undoes. It's a very slow Yogg Will. You might have a dead Chaos Defiler you want to return, or you might have used a relic at some point and discarded an artifact like a Crucible because you had no need of it at the time or whatever, and now it's going to be useful. Things of that nature. One other thing I do want to point out with Tezzeret, by the way, is that it triggers off any artifact entering play. And so what that means is that it triggers off Curse of Opulence. It triggers twice off Guild Artisan. This thing is bonkers. Totally bonkers. So with all that in mind, it's like, well, how well does this deck do? And the answer, all I can tell you is I'm not sure. I'm not sure how well this deck does. There's 2 problems. One, it's fairly new and it's been performing beautifully. And I did get an opportunity to at least play the mirror match, not the mirror match, but the sort of the evil version of RogSi, Rograkh, Silas, Renn. I got to play the combo version that I was trying to defend myself against, and I was able to just stomp all over them. But that's super draw dependent. It's very hard to know. If a sample of 1 is not really anything other than a little bit encouraging. But what about against the rest of the field? Well, against the rest of the field, I just crush them, right? Like I've been crushing everything. But the problem is twofold there. One, it's hard to get a lot of games on Magic Online often. And frequently what happens, and this happened to me a few days ago, is that people will see this commander configuration and they will immediately nope on out of the game, and sometimes even get angry and say a bunch of nasty things, because when they see the color combination, perhaps, I haven't had it be the case that they've ever done anything other than assume that this is the combo deck. They always assume it is, and in fact, a couple days ago, the moment that I alluded to is that my opponent, I told him, I was like, I am not the combo deck. While we have cards in common, there are many cards I do not play from their deck. I'm not playing Breach. There's no LED in here. I'm not playing Thassa's Oracle. And the guy was just like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. Just keep on the line or whatever. And conceded anyway. I'm not going to argue with somebody whose mindset is that they refuse to accept new information. I'm just going to move on. And that I blocked them and moved on. But it's one of those things where it's like frustrating for me because I'm not able to get enough games because, frankly, the majority of players who are playing Commander online, I can't speak for the offline community, but I can, or even I can't speak for the online community either, but I can tell you my indicators, like the things I've noticed about it, which is that online people do not want to play against the combo deck. They don't like it. They hate it about as much as I've hated it, probably, but at the very least, they don't like it enough that they just don't want to play against it, and I can't blame them. Like, of course. It's freaking miserable. Like, it's so miserable to just sit there and watch your opponent, do their bullshit, right? Like, and just take advantage of the fact that the ban list sucks in Commander. The ban list really, truly sucks. It's got huge holes in it. But, unfortunately, that's the world we're in, and I was in this situation where I was like, if I can't beat them, join them, right? And that's the old saying. And I don't want to join. I thought about joining them in the sense of like trying to build a combo deck, and then maybe trying to do like either through deck selection or play skill or whatever, or pure luck, trying to be the better version. And I just can't do it. I do not enjoy. And I found this out when I was playing the 5-color deck, and I had Breach in my deck. I don't enjoy playing Breach. Like, I don't enjoy just being like, up 2 mana, and now I just win the game. See, I'll just put this into play, take it out of play, put it into play, take it out of play, put it into play, take it out of play, cast a spell, oh, mill myself, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's stupid to me. It's stupid that that's even a thing. I find it, like, offensive to my sensibilities as a player who's interested in a game of skill. There's no skill involved in it, and it's the same reason I won't play against Minsc and Boo or play with it. I built the deck for a little while, played with it for a little while, proved to myself that it is as skillless and bullshit as I thought it was, and then never played it again because it's like you're denigrating yourself as a player, in my view, in the sense of like your skill is really eclipsed by the power level of your cards. Your cards are so good that your skill doesn't matter that much. Like, what skill does it take to cast Underworld Breach or Minsc and Boo or whatever? Like, it takes no skill. It's really just mechanical. And I find it to be anything like that to be kind of gross and somewhat offensive, and just not something I'm interested in doing. So while this deck does a lot of degenerate, ridiculous stuff, it is designed to be the good guy in that fight, essentially, from my perspective, again, in which we try to beat up on the other combo decks. Now, there are some cards I could put in to probably make that even more likely to succeed. I've kicked around, for example, Winter Orb is terrible against that deck, and something along the lines of like mass artifact removal, like sneaking a by force in, would be probably far stronger against them. It's possible that change needs to happen anyway. I found Winter Orb to be not as good in general as I'd like it to be, probably for the last couple of years, just because of the amount of nonsense that's out there. So that's something that's I'm kind of kicking around in my head is whether or not I'd want to do that, or Vandal Blast or whatever. But for now, I think it's okay. Winter Orb still has a place in my heart and control decks in general. And we do have Karn, of course, and we've got that fading into ready. And like, it's not like I can not deal with like large quantities of artifacts if I need to. As far as deck composition, I feel like there may not be a great deal to discuss in the sense that it is essentially bullseye control, but now we have counter magic, and so there's not a lot to go over there other than the aspects that I've already discussed, and we'll take it from there. But I can tell you this deck is wild, and Tezzeret is nonsense. I had a game where I played Urza's Saga into, it was a ramping start. It was like Saga, Soul Ring, and then I went Tezzeret, and then started like pumping my mana, or maybe I did Saga, Mana Vault, Tezzeret, something like that. Grabbed a Soul Ring and then started doing nonsense. I ended up killing a guy on turn 4, I want to say, with 3 or 4, because I ended up getting Crucible. I had like, it must have been turn 4 or turn 5, but it was so insane. I had 3 like 9 plus power robots in play from the Saga, and I had ulted Tez. I had played Tez, searched with Tez, ulted Tez, and it was still there. It was still sitting in play, like being disgusting. I guess one last thing that I will point out with this thing, probably the most disgusting thing you can do, besides getting Soul Ring and pumping Soul Ring and Vault and all that, the most disgusting thing you can do, oh, and by the way, very helpful that you can put together like the little mini combos with Silas, but the grossest thing you can do is actually pump the Soul Ring, the One Ring rather. It's the One Ring that's more powerful than Soul Ring, and being able to like tutor for the mana to play an early One Ring and then start double pumping the thing is just absolutely basically unbeatable. It's totally off the chain. So anyway, with all that said, let's see if we can get some games. I don't know if we'll get any hits, and I don't know what the quality of those games will be or anything else, but we'll at least give it a shot. I'm not going to jump into somebody's that has a 3, bracket 3 or 3. This is all like medium power casual stuff, and nobody would appreciate that. Least of all me, because I wouldn't enjoy, it's not fun to like pub stomp in a place where you don't actually belong. And we'll do some test draws here. So I've got, 5 bracket, CEDH. Like I try to make it clear what's going on here in case anyone has an issue with that. We will, I'll look at the deck we'll talk about a few other things while we're waiting for a game to start. I'll do some test draws. If I don't get any bites, then we'll probably have to wrap it up without much gameplay, unfortunately. But in the meantime, a couple other things that might be interesting. The One Ring, how do you get rid of it if it becomes a problem? You can certainly die to your own One Ring. We've got a couple different ways we can do it. First of all, we have copy artifact. Second of all, we got a game. All right, let's actually just play this game against Pando-san. And let's see. Hi, good luck, and have fun. So we have, first turn Rog, and we can fetch to try to get going, and we are going first, so I think this is a safe keep, relatively speaking. It is not the most insane. We have a bit of a risk. It's a bit of a risky keep. But we'll go for it. So I'm going to go ahead and get Volk in order to set up for a turn 2 mana drain if I either find blue or if Ragavan connects, and I can leave a treasure in play. And I'm going to play in this order, so that my commander counters, my opponent doesn't know I don't have any, but my commander counters are online. I'll play this, and then there is Mindbreak Trap in the format, so my third spell for the turn will be Bobble. If anything's getting trapped, that's the one that I want getting exiled among the 3 options. And I could grab a card right away with this, and I think I will. And the reasons that I'm going to sack it now is that I want to hopefully draw a free counter spell, and that'll give me interaction. And I also want to get away from I don't know if they go like land, mana source, Bowmasters killing my Ragavan. It's already a nightmare, but okay, so they've got a land coming. And it's already a nightmare for me if that happens, but this would but having them do it into a cantrip would just be even worse. All right. Well, there's a flare, which is almost a counterspell, but we're not quite there. Almost counter ready. So now it's really a matter of whether or not Rag connects, or if I can hit another land here, or mana source. I mean, even a petal would be fine because it'd let me at least mana drain into like a crucible, and then we're good. We'll see. But having that bauble there is nice. All right. Well, we didn't hit any mana. So do they have removal? What happens here? I don't know. One card that I'm not currently using that I really like and may make the cut at some point again is Spell Pierce. I'd feel 1,000 times better right now with the Spell Pierce in hand, but a lot of times you do want to like spend mana early, and it's hard to keep mana back. The reason why Washout's a little bit better, I think, is that Washout, at least like for people who actually spend mana on their commanders, Washout, you have a general idea of when you need to hold it up, so you can develop fairly safely. But with Spell Pierce, you don't know. Typically, you're not, because I don't have, unless I'm duressing them or something, I don't know, like, could they have a Soul Ring? Do I need to keep it up? Are they going to Dark Ritual? Like, what's the answer there? So I kind of like, is my opponent going to let me do anything? So I kind of like having, I like having Washout a little bit better over Pierce. And also, I found sometimes with Pierce, it was, it's great if against like decks like this, but sometimes you can just very quickly get, they go first turn Mana Elf, and then second turn like the creature that recurs land, and then third turn like something fat, and you're just looking at this Pierce like frustrated, and I very much don't enjoy when that happens. Hello, are you there? Okay, I guess I don't have to say that. Let's see if we can connect with the Rag, or if it gets like, I don't know. There's so many removal that my opponent could have right here. All right, we did connect. We'll always yield to that. It's not like I can control the top of their deck and would do anything with that. And now I think we're good to go. So if I had hit a land drop here, I would probably Merchant Scroll, since it's a little bit early. I'd just go grab Force of Will and just stack additional defenses, because I'm unlikely that I necessarily need to force on turn 2, and then that'll allow me to set up mana drain and be force ready. Don't know why this opponent's taking so painfully long to advance the turn. I'm asking if you could play just a bit faster since I'm recording. And he disconnected. So he might be having an issue. One thing I've noticed with Magic Online is like the longer you play Magic Online, the more computer resources it eats up. And eventually it gets to a point where you almost can't even use your computer at all. And the only hope you have is to crash Magic Online, and then sometimes even restart your computer. And then suddenly everything's fine for a couple hours. So we are just waiting to see if my opponent is going to come back, or if they're just like completely quitting this game. And in the meantime, like I was saying, I was talking about the One Ring. How do I deal with my own One Ring? It's a question you've got to have answered in your builds, I think, a lot of times. One of the answers is you just combo off and win before it matters, which we're not doing here. So the other answer, typically when I'm running blue, will be to run a Copy Artifact, which also lets me, it's an answer to opposing Soul Rings. It's great with Relic. It's great with Cast Father. But it's also an answer to my own One Ring. By, if this gets too many burden counters, I can just be unburdened by what has been. Casting the Copy Artifact, sacking the old one. I have access to the Ready. I can sacrifice it there to destroy an artifact or a creature. So that's another solution. And then I am running Umezawa's Jitte, so I can loosely keep up with the One Ring under certain conditions. And then there's the hard way of getting rid of it, if I absolutely had to, is something along the lines of like Karn to turn it into a creature, and then Deadly Relic it out of the game or something like. Those are the desperation things that you might have to do, but unlikely to come up in most cases after a couple taps. Even sometimes just playing and resolving it, you tap it, your opponent looks at their next card and says, I don't really have any interaction for this card, and I already know how this is going to go. It's often just a scoop on the spot. It's these two cards are really like ban worthy because they really fit that criteria of, or at least in my opinion, are ban worthy because they fit that criteria of being game ending for very low investment. I've played turn one ring thanks to Workshop and Ancient Tomb and Mana Vault like many times, and it's just game over. It seems a little wrong, a little ridiculous, but at any rate, between the two, if I only could ban one, I would ban Necropotence in a heartbeat. It is an amazing card. It's a wonderful card. It's a fun card, but it is also degenerate as hell. And like there are some really interesting games and interesting things you can do. Probably one of the best videos I ever had was a game where I won with 0 cards in my library off the back of a Necropotence because of the no draw clause. Like it saved my butt, and I was able to. And I never even drew cards with it. I just used it to stop drawing so that I wouldn't die. And I think the card's amazing for that regard. And I'd love for the card to like not be to be able to exist without being banned. But and maybe if we ban all the other like the real garbage, like in my view, like Breach and whatnot, maybe Necro can exist. It's been in the format from the beginning, after all. But on the flip side, man, that card is just like, in a format with 40 life, it's just cards like this, even possibly Sylvan Library, just really, really gross. I don't think this guy's coming back, so what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and just set up another game or jump into another game. I won't play Dots because he just plays Minsk and Boo, and I don't play Minsk and Boo. I'm not at all interested in abusing a card that needs to be banned clearly and putting it in the command zone to that extent, right? Like I actually do believe I'm saying that, but I do believe Rog is almost certainly needs to be banned as a card in the command zone. But weirdly, like Rog, like for example, I mean this is a good game. But like take an example here, right? I didn't draw one of the cards that goes with Rog, and it does nothing. Like it literally does nothing, right? So it's kind of weird in that sense. If this was Minsk and Boo, all I have to draw is mana. If this card's in play, the game is over. Like there's no real counterplay to that card outside of like directly killing the Minsk, and you're still dealing with the Boo. And so I mention that because I don't feel that they are the same. These two things are not the same. One of them like provides fast mana, which is really good in a format filled with fast mana, but not always. The other one rewards you for fast mana, and I think there's my kid. I think that that is in a format filled with fast mana, and that is a little bit too much. I think it's a little bit too much to have something that essentially wins the game in the command zone. Like, even if you look here, right? Like, look at do either of these commanders actually win the game, or are they just enablers for a build around me deck? Oh great, I can recur as this Bobble. Does that win the game? Well, yeah, if it's left unchecked for a while, but it's like a build around me. What does this do by itself? Nothing. So I'm kind of like willing to, and I'm okay with like super broken stuff, like this, and playing super broken stuff, when it's like either in your deck. I'm a little bit. This is one reason why I hesitate on the Necro, because it's in the deck. You still have to draw it. You still have to cast it. It's a bit of a challenging mana cost at triple black outside of getting a Dark Ritual. It shows up most frequently in a blue deck, and so the blue deck has to get access to 3 black. Like it's still a little bit of work to make it work, but still, I think it's probably, it still needs to be banned. But I guess I don't feel as bad. But if Necropotence could be, let's take this card out of here and put it over here. Imagine you could put Necro in your command zone. Then I just wouldn't play it, because I'd be like, this is bullshit. I would want it banned. I would play it enough to try to get it banned, and if it wasn't banned, I wouldn't play it, and I'd refuse to play against it. Like I wouldn't play against Necropotence in the command zone, because, and I don't know if you know this, but just giving you some backstory. So Griselbrand, which is essentially Necropotence in the command zone. Griselbrand's the gigantic creature that you pay 7 life to draw 7 cards, and he costs like 8 or 9 mana. I think I have one. Yeah, here we go. Costs 8 mana. This thing, flying lifelink, pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. Yes, flying lifelink 7/7 is good, but the real magic of Griselbrand is this text right here. And back when he was legal in Commander, I put him in the command zone. So I know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to Necropotence. And actually, I was advocating for him to get banned, and I'm pretty sure I got him banned. I sent screenshot after screenshot of turn 2 kills off of the back of Griselbrand. And I was turn 2 killing my opponent, because in Commander you could get 8 mana on turn 2. And there were games where it was, slower, and it was a turn 3 kill, But, like, the fact that I had, like, and I remember building that deck and thinking, like, shouldn't I be playing Necropotence in my turbo mana mono black deck? And in a lot of cases the answer was, well, yeah, but it's really a backup plan, and drawing this card sucks. It gets in the way of what you're trying to do, which is get Griselbrand into play. And it's slower, like you get the cards at the end of the turn, whereas Griselbrand's like, draw 30 cards right now. And the fact of the matter was, and I was Tendrils killing people, so it wasn't even like, I think I may have even pulled Necro from that deck. I can't recall anymore. But my point is, there are things that are super busted, and like this card's totally legal. Like I could put it in my deck, right? Boop. Except it's not legal in this format. And this card would, at that time, though, it was banned from the command zone and it was legal. You could put it in your deck. And once they made that change, it was gross, but still, like, not as bad. At least I think. I think that was the change that they made. All right, let's take a look at this. We're playing against Sammy Wildcat. Do I have the good luck and have fun thing? No, I don't. I was looking for a certain card. Let me see if I can copy this. Now, let's take a look. Do I want to keep this? It's very sketchy, right? Like, I do have the bauble thing for my commander down the road, and if I had 1 more mana for my artisan, but I think it'd be safer to just take the mulligan here. Much, much better. We're going to keep this. We don't have anywhere to go with this specifically, but what we can do is, I think it's pretty safe to get rid of either the preordain or a land, because what we're going to do is, like, we're only going to play 2 cards, and I think my opponent's going to concede. We're going to tutor up a either a Necro or One Ring, more than likely. So I think it's actually okay to get rid of the preordain because it's just a bit slow. So let's get Rograkh down. Figure out how I want to develop this out, because what I can do here is I can play Saga to get that ticking, and then pitch a card to the Mox Diamond, and then DT, or I can, it's a little bit better if I lead with Tomb. We'll play Talisman. I do have to watch out for my opponent's commander there. I'm going to go ahead and pitch the I'm probably going to pitch the Scalding Tarn here. And then we'll just DT for something busted. Now my opponent attacks my mana. Of course, this isn't, it's not amazing for me. It's a bit of a problem, but so one of my options would be like will replay my land, cast Demonic Tutor again, which is just value will. One of my options is just get the One Ring. So what do I value more, is like the One Ring or Necro? Well, if I have a lot of cards in hand, I'd probably rather get the One Ring. But with only a few, I definitely value the Necro a little bit more. If they destroy my lands here, I will feel kind of bad about it, obviously. I'll be like, wow, I should have got the One Ring. But realistically speaking, even if they were to destroy these, like I do have this to go get some more black, and I have extra black here, so I think I'm probably okay. Yeah, opponent's gonna ramp out a giant threat. But we are going to, speaking of giant threats, we're going to do this, and then from there we can mostly respond to whatever our opponent's trying to do. Let's grab 5 cards. And even if my opponent, like if they get their giant commander down, I can vamp into the free to Rograkh, and I can Necro to set aside that card. So I'll be able to Rograkh during my end step, not during my upkeep, but, or not during, you know, the turn. I won't be able to like vamp during upkeep and then draw and play the card, but I mean, if you look here, we just picked up what, 2 free spells. Pretty powerful, and of course tons of mana and threats. Very good stuff. So I'd like to Karn my opponent. I'd like to vamp for Karn, would be ideal, I think. But the question is, do I want to force her? I don't need the frog at all because I've got Necro. So this Force of Will would, I think it's just for tempo purposes, it makes a ton of sense. And then what I can do is I can vamp for a mana drain instead, so we'll just force that, possibly. We'll figure out what we're going to tutor for. I should probably think a little bit more, talk a little bit less, just for this turn, since this is a fairly, some of this is fairly straightforward. We're going to do Saga, we're going to do Artisan, get in there with Rograkh and grab some of those. What's crazy is this applies to both commanders, by the way. So you can actually put it on this thing too, and you'll get double the tokens, which is absurd. And in fact, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana here. I can actually just play everything in my hand. You know, I'm not going to play, but I can play like. I'm thinking of playing Silas, Confidant, Vamp, and that seems pretty good to me. So since this acts as a mana source, so we'll go black, blue, we'll play Silas, and also if I flare now, I have this is still active, or in the, we'll go here, we'll play that, and then we'll vamp. 6, 7. Is it worth flaring that back? I don't really think so. I think the mana is fine for me. Okay, I can't. It's interesting that they targeted that over Plow. We'll go ahead and, like I said, vamp. I would have been a free counterspell if I, you know, allowed it. Like if I were to get a, if that stayed in play, I could got Flare of Denial and had a free counterspell up. So the real question is, what would I want to get here? I think that more than likely, I need to be concerned about like their commander more than I need to be concerned about. More than I need to be concerned about. More than likely, I need to be concerned about their commander more than I need to be concerned about something like a Planeswalker. But if I want to hedge my bets, I could go get Chaos Defiler. So there is that. I think I will get Rograkh. I think that is the correct answer. So we'll. All right, we're at 20. So in a normal game of Magic, I'm dead. But, you know, hey, it's Commander. Necropotent's only half a life per card, essentially. Cool. We've got Spellseeker now. We can use that to fetch another. We can Spellseeker into like mystical to whatever, ponder it into our hand, whatever we need to do in that regard. Okay. So they play that. And before they keep going, let's. I could Rograkh and Flare and take out both of those cards. I may actually do that. Yeah, that's fine. You can have that. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I think. Let's do it after attacking though, because I'd like to get my tokens. And there's no reason not to. I don't have to do it at the end of their turn, particularly. We want to see what we get here. Okay, that helps too. If they have their own like flare or redirection effect, that might be, you know, something I would want to take into consideration. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and Thoughtseize them. Stick their last card. Also, Thoughtseize Flare is super good. Yeah, sure. Shuffle that into your library. So now we can just... yeah, well, we'll oh, you're done? Okay. So we're going to attack with Rograkh just to get the 2 tokens. And then before blockers, holding control, I'm going to Rograkh and then Flare. We're going to get rid of both of these creatures. And then after combat, I'll go ahead and strip mine away the Ancient Tomb. So I would take out this, this, and this. So I'd leave them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, which is still a decent bit. But I could then Spellseeker and go grab a Molten Collapse, cast the Collapse and kill this, and a 1-drop if they have it. Or Spellseeker, and so this is where having Vandal Blast would certainly make things a hell of a lot easier. But you know, I'm not exactly trying to build myself for anti-Sammy Wildcat like tech. It is a great card though, Vandal Blast, and definitely something I need to be thinking about. But you know, we'll see. The other thing with like Rograkh, of course, is you can go first turn Vandal Blast, flare it, and like VB multiple things when you only have 1 red. So I am fairly convinced that needs to exist. Anyway, long story short, with the Grizzlebrand thing that I was talking about earlier was that we were able to get a ban, thankfully. But this is the one card that not being in my deck feels like it probably isn't right. We'll see, though. We'll see. Anyway, good luck and have fun. They're playing Merfolk of some sort. That's interesting. I'm going to keep, obviously. We've got fast mana and interaction, so let's keep it and see what happens. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Tavish, so, you know, first turn Ancient Tomb, second turn Tavish is often, that's just game over quite often, but we're not going to have access to that. All right, Maui 109876 says that they like my YouTube and they're going to sub. That's super cool. Maui is I moved out here from Hawaii. Maui is to where I am now because I'm military. But Maui is an island I never got to visit actually, or a place I've never been yet. All right, let's lead with Rog. All right, and we'll pass. And we'll see how things go. Ideally, you know, we can get this Tricky Mage down we're not under too much pressure, and then we can do some fun stuff. Oh, first turn Soul Ring. That does change the clock a little bit. No free force on that guy. Okay, so we do need the blue-red. So the question is, do I want to set up for a, remand here? I could, if I do, one of the ways I could do it is I could trinket into, artifact mana. I feel like I really want to spend my mana. I wish I had like one more artifact here. But I think that I'm going to go ahead and yield. So the reason I'm going to yield is that I plan to remand here and off of that start, and I also have the option to brainstorm if I don't remand. So yeah, okay, there we go. What we'd like to find, of course, is something to pop that ring, but also if I can continuously, like, if I need to, I can tutor up for Force of Will if I have to. Here's a game where, at least at the moment, Winter Orb is not particularly exciting due to the existence of Soul Ring on the other side of the board. That is very, very slow, and we are 100% okay with that. That was a gift. That was like a wasted turn from my opponent, but not from me since I have the brainstorm. All right, very, very strong there. Okay, so I'm anticipating orbs still being good at some point, but if I don't want to make that assumption, I can basically put it back, pick up the Imperial Seal here, and then trinket. Get rid of the other card that I don't want to see, and then we can figure out what we want to grab here. So more than likely, so normally it would be like Mox Opal, but again, I'm a mana short from that really doing too much. I could get Springleaf Drum. That's an interesting idea, and then I can Imperial Seal. I would have to tap the Grim. That Drum idea it's not horrible. I could get Lotus Petal and I could Imperial Seal off of that, but that feels kind of bad. But maybe it's not that big of a deal because we do have Silas Renn, and once I tutor, I'm going to fix my mana completely. So actually, I think that that's fine. Yeah, I've got Silas, so I'm just going to grab myself a. I'm going to fix my mana with. It's the 4-drop. Where are you, 4-drop? What is it called? It's Sauron? Sauron's. Relic of Sauron. There we go. Alright. So we can, because what I can do next turn, I can Relic into Silas, and then, Silas will start picking up Lotus Petals, and that's fine. I do need to force this play more than likely and hope that I don't just get destroyed by a counter play. Okay, each merfolk you control explores. I think this is still correct to force here, and more than likely I'm going to want to force it with Remand, because I may need to Merchant Scroll into a solution here, especially if this gets countered, if he counters back like that. Oh, an offer I can't refuse is totally fine. Just use the mana from that to mana leak. What? That card's terrible. Unless you're combo, I guess. Alright, so we just mana leak that, we draw, we get down the Relic of Sauron, probably play the Silas, and then from there, I think, I'm in pretty good shape. We pick up the Lotus Petal and Merchant Scroll for teachings, and use Mystical Tutor, and then use Tutor to go get Demonic Tutor in, and we use Demonic Tutor plus the impact of Petal Silas to, once again, either tutor for the One Ring or Necropotence, which is really what this deck has to do because, again, we don't have a card drawing engine in the command zone. We have like a mana engine, essentially. So we need to recur, we need to get nonsense going with these cards that probably should be banned, is what it comes down to. I really am interested in running a Vandal Blast, though. I strongly want to play it. It's so hard to figure out what to do. I mean, maybe playing that's better than playing Wash Away, and I just let my opponents have their commanders a little more often than I should. But it doesn't sound right to me. But out of my one drops, that's probably the most, or the least important. Like, Vandal Blast is, I guess, what wins the game more, you know, the Wash Away or the VB? To be honest, I don't know the answer. But it may very well be the VB. It certainly is. Like, if you're playing against this deck, specifically these commanders, like washing away Rog is silly. I mean, you do it, but it's kind of silly. And the Silas Renn, it's still fairly not great. Like, it's not the biggest threat in the world. It's possible that just, I don't know though. One mana counter target commander is pretty amazing, but this card's also amazing too. I am very tempted to make that swap. It's so tough. Is there anything else I would pull for it? I don't think it's the Nihil Spellbomb, because I think having access to that loop as well as that defensive tool is too important, given the number of ways that we can tutor it up, especially. And plus, sometimes you do just need, like I said, you do just need something that you can use to pick up extra cards with. It could be the Lotus Petal. I mean, it was good there, but it's not like, I don't know, fundamental. Let's take a look at some of these options out there. Oh boy. Street Urchin and Aranis. Those are both pretty darn good. Alright, well, I mean, I think this hand has mana. It's got cards. Drawing-ish. And since we've got the Nihil Spellbomb, we've got the Preordain, we've got the Bauble, so I think this is a keep, even if it's not the most exciting. What I would do if this was Mishra's, what looks at the top card of Library, is I would use the bubble on myself, and if I don't like my top card, I'd Flooded Strand, and if I did like it, I'd go Saga Spellbomb. But it's not that, so instead I'll try to get some information from my opponent by bobbling their hand. Well, they have an Ancient Tomb. That's never a fun thing to see. So probably going to start digging for some kind of counter magic. We're going to want Underground here, and then just hope that I can hit. Well, it's not counter magic, but it is, you know, a freebie. How important is Flare against that deck, typically? How important is... I want the Wooded Foothills. I don't know how this deck ramps besides. We're going to put that on top. And I'm gonna go bottom with that. I don't know how good that Flare is against them, honestly, and I want to dig for, like this, knowing there's a tomb coming. Null Rod, okay, interesting. Okay, yeah, very interesting. I would like to have the Vandal Blast over the Nihil Spellbomb, certainly in this situation, but can't always assume that's going to happen. Colorless mana, interesting. Alright, we'll leave the Wooded Foothills down. With any luck. So, if I play the Saga, I leave the opposition agent and counterspell up so that I'm prepared to deal with whatever my opponent does on their turn. Then on the next turn, I can play Saga, the Dark Confidant. So that's one route. I think that's probably correct because if my opponent has a fetch here, it's so strong to opposition agent them. Sack a creature for mana, 2x, sack a desert, exile target creature card, create a copy of it. That's a wild card. I've never seen that card. Alright. So this at least, if I didn't have the agent, I would have, cast a spell bomb there, but yeah, so this is why we're going to do this. Probably win the game right now. There's a good chance anyway. So we'll get Volk. Wow, they've got 2 basic lands and a lot of, Collector Oof, a lot of hosers. It's interesting that they only have like 2 basic lands. So I don't really need forest at all. Mountain is more useful to me. But I feel like my opponent needs forest pretty bad, so I'm actually going to take the forest and make the ability for them to play a little bit more difficult. I'd love to have seen a... Oh, that was nice. That was a real nice top deck. Okay. Alright, we'll get in with our 3 damage. That's the easy part. Alright, so we're just joking about the forest being in play here. So a shame I can't so I've got 2 options here. So one of my options is just to keep my counter spell up, which is what I ideally want to do. So if we're going to do that, and then I'm sorry, there's a no rod in play. I almost completely spaced out on what's going on here. So I actually don't think that I can safely leave my counterspell in play. I need to Confidant and find some mana so that I can get this Chaos Defiler down. So we will sort of pseudo-develop here. And hope that the opposition agent continues to suppress, like if my opponent draws a fetch land here, they can't do too much. Alright, we're looking for a land to get that null rod off the board. That's not a land. I need a land now. No? No land. So I could make a robot here. Just to put pressure on my opponent and have some defenses. Or I can float mana. Which I think is what I think I'm gonna go ahead and do. So there aren't a lot here. There's not a lot of like really great options for me here. Do I need more colorless mana? Do I need more blue mana? What am I looking at? I'm gonna get the Soul Ring, guys. When in doubt, Soul Ring is a pretty safe bet. But unfortunately, I think I have to take shield. I think I have to go shields down again. Man, if I had Vandal Blast, it's so funny because I can't Spellseeker for it. 2, 3. Yeah. All right, let's go get a 1 mana answer though. So I think what we'll do is we'll just go get either Vamp or Imperial Seal, and I think Vamp makes the most sense. Alternately, I could use this on a Mystical Tutor. So am I going to get a land, or am I going to get You know what? I think if I get Vampiric Tutor, I think that's actually correct. I want to hit a land. I'm going to play this because there's a card called Jessica's Will in the format that exists, and I don't want to feed my opponent a ton of mana if they're playing it and they go like Mountain Jessica's Will. Alright, and this game should be over now. We'll grab a mana source. And we'll make it a workshop, I think. Yeah. Oop. Now my opponent knows what I got. Alright, 3, 4, 5. This will probably elicit the scoop. But, you know, hey, maybe not. Apply some beats. We'll get the relic down. And we'll get a Nihil Spellbomb down. Pass for the turn. And yeah, my opponent is just utterly hosed by the opposition agent. Those 3 mana win the game in this specific case. Alright, let him discard. I don't need to sack the Spellbomb. I'm fine here with the counter magic and what's going on over here. I don't need to spend mana on that. Oh, hey, look at that lovely card. Alright, grab ourselves the Badlands and swing in, and then we'll might twist my opponent out of this game to finish it up. I mean, they're at 12, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we still have a counter spell up ready to go. I will sack the Spellbomb at the end of this turn if there is a turn. So, funny enough, I've got this 3-drop commander in the sideboard, and it was too expensive to play this entire game, right? Like, what a crazy thing. What a crazy thing. The format is like that. I'm really interested in the Vandal Blast. I think that swap is probably acceptable. I think this swap is okay. I think Wash Away is an insanely powerful card, and this may not be correct. Also, the Nihil Spellbomb may not be correct. I'm really back and forth on it. Like, although this does create a card drawing engine, like a slow one with the Silas, it's possible that, first of all, if I want artifact or graveyard hate, Tormod's Crypt is a much more effective card. Because it's cheaper, and you know, it's possible maybe I don't run the Petal and I run the Crypt, something like that. So I really do want to figure out what the right balance is. I'm going to try, I can tell you this, in the first couple of turns, Nihil Spellbomb is generally not what I want, and Wash Away absolutely is. So let's do it this way, and Vandal Blast is. And then let's see if I can fit either Spellbomb or maybe I run, like I said, Tormod's Crypt, or some other, like maybe there's a better like 2-drop graveyard hate card, but I want to keep it to 1 or 0 just so that I can recast it cheaply or free off of Silas, and also because I want it to be tutorable by Trinket, Tezzeret, and Saga. So, you know, I don't know, but I feel like Vandal Blast has just got to be in this deck. Like you just can't. You're not really playing control if you're not playing with something like that to solve multiple artifacts and have as a tutor target, as you saw there, like for Spellseeker or just in general to address the first turn Soul Ring. I think it's probably too important. So we'll make that one change here. And we'll just see, how bad do I need the Nihil Spellbomb? Maybe the Petals stuff is too silly. So it's possible like this could be like a Nihil Spellbomb, and maybe even we put in something like, something over here, like, for example, this 3-mana Planeswalker is really good. If I wanted some extra graveyard hate, there's Narset, although Narset's quite good, but there is, what's it called? Let's see if I can come up with the correct card. It's the one that prevents them from searching their library and also mills and exiles graveyard cards. So another card, incidentally, is that's really good is Prismari Command. It's removal, it's card draw, it's ramp, it's artifact destruction. So that's another option. Ashok's the card I was thinking of. I could go for an all-arounder. Either some refill, Sauron's Ransom, or just Recoil. Because as much as I like these two cards, and I do like them, and they make a lot of sense in this deck, they're not absolutely necessary for the deck to function. But I think I have a hunch that Nihil Spellbomb is super important. I have a hunch that it's important enough that I'm making a mistake by not running it, is what I think. So, do I want something like this? Do I want something like Forbid? Recoil, incidentally, just being sort of, like I said, an all-arounder. Somebody stacks a bunch of enchantments on their land, you can punish the land like that. It takes care of a lot of incidental problematic threats. There is also, of course, the sort of like anti-combo nonsense Ristic Study card that's just generally frustrating to play against, and it's possible that that is also something that I should be considering. There's Liliana if I want some like sort of a mix of creature removal and possible like hand destruction. Liliana's okay if you have Silas running, so you can like discard an artifact and then replay it, but the artifacts don't go back to your hand from this guy. They don't like go to your hand, they get replayed, so you may cast that card this turn. So it's not like it's a permanent protective effect against losing your hand. So that is something to keep in mind. There's another really strong 3-drop in Professional Facebreaker that also can take advantage of treasures and use them to get some pretty crazy things going. And then there's my old favorite, Lelia, who is really strong when you have, if you would then run Tainted Pact, and you'd have the Lelia Pact combo to, which also works with Necro, which is really strong. But I don't like Lelia as much in a reactive like counter magic deck, because when you're exiling counter spells with this, it's not so great. When you're exiling removal, then you can then cast that removal immediately. Is a lot more sort of interesting and kind of what you want to do with your it belongs more in a proactive rather than reactive deck. Even if the deck is proactively disruptive, like destroy target artifact, kill target creature or whatever, that's still, unless there's no target, that's still a play you can make off of Lelia. Counter target spell, not so much. So outside of those options there's a few other interesting ones. There's Praetor's Grasp, which is just a way to completely break a combo deck. There's also Dismember, if I would just prefer to have a little more removal that I can cast for 1 mana or 3, depending on how much life I want to spend on the card. And the fact that it's very similar to like Swords to Plowshares in that sense. Kalia of the Vast. And it's possible I need a little more removal. The other card that's interesting to me is Fire Covenant that I'm not running, that very well might belong in here. So, well, I'm going second, so I don't get to go like Inquisition away their Soul Ring. But if they do run out the Soul Ring, I can Marsh Flats, Mox Amber, Molten Collapse it, if that's what we end up seeing. And if not, then I get the option to do this. So we'll go Rograkh and play the old Mox Amber. Now the question is whether or not I should Inquisition them immediately or sit on the mana leak. And I think it's okay to sit on the mana leak and wait for more information. I probably, it's possible I'm making a mistake here, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. Unfortunately, there's one fetch gone, but like ideally, not too much happens here, and then I can play the strip mine, but sit on the opposition agent, kind of like bide my time that way. If I draw a talisman or something, then I'd like to go strip mine, tap Amber, strip, and cast the talisman, and then sit on the mana leak. Or potentially I burn the leak here, and then I draw a talisman, I cast the talisman, Inquisition, and so forth. So, yeah. So we will disrupt them here with a leak for tempo, and then I'll follow it up with Inquisition most likely. I may sit on, like I said though, I may just chill on an opposition agent for a minute. Inquisition gets worse, with every passing turn. But right, that's actually a lot more interesting because now I can Inquisition them and sit on a opposition agent, and I also have the option to, if I see that it would be useful to strip mine them, I can do that. So let's do this now and get the information that we want. Alright, Anguish on Making is good. So these both come into play tap. This is just like giant payoff cards, so we'll just take the Anguish. So they only have a single white source, so we're going to wait and strip mine the Godless Shrine once they provide that as a target. And I will play this. I'd very much love to opposition agent my opponent. And I also want to spend my mana effectively here, so we'll just chill on that. That's also an activator for the Molten Collapse later. And we'll turn my Mox off, but then I can just replay my Rograkh. And if my opponent draws a Demonic Tutor here or something along those lines, then I would have counter magic. I also have now I've got a target for Copy Artifact, which is nice. Alright, so there's the Godless. So we know exactly, we have 100% knowledge of what my opponent's hand is. So if I think I will, oops, nope, cancel. We have to do this in the correct order. Alright, let's sneak this guy out. Anguish is gone. Nice thing here is I can copy the signet. In a bit, if I want to fix my mana, but I absolutely need to kill that shrine. Well, that was a pretty nice top deck there. So we'll go ahead and waste that shrine. Alright, and then I will just replay my little Mox here, which gives me access to red. Alright. So I didn't wait too long on the Inquisition, fortunately. That all kind of curved out the way I wanted it to. We're going to Molten Collapse his Kalia if it gets into play, and then strip mine whatever white mana source they use to play it, unless, of course, the white mana source is something like a talisman, but we will see. And then if I get an opportunity here, if there's a window where I can get my Silas down, I can get that into play, and then I have that available for. Well, there we go. How about Necropotence? Alright, so we'll play this. We'll, I'm a mana short from Necro, I guess, as it turns out. So I will... Right? If I Demonic Tutor, yeah, 2 black and a red, I tutor that way. Yeah, I'm a little bit shy. That's okay. I'm not going to use the Strip Mine this turn, so I'm going to go ahead and copy Artifact Rakdos Signet over there. Okay, and then I can put that mana into a Demonic Tutor. And then what that does, that gives me enough mana next turn where I can collapse and Necro if my opponent does hit a white source. And so basically my opponent has to have Hymn to Torok or Duress, something along those lines here, or else they lose the game. Because it's just 3 black win the game. Or they could kill my creatures. So if they were to like sweep my board, I only have 2 black available. I would have to spend 3 mana to get my Silas into play. Okay, so that's going to die very soon. Okay, interesting. I do not understand my opponent's thought process here, but we will attack that white mana there. I'm not sure why they decided to do what they decided to do. And yeah, we'll play Necro. I'm not even going to mess around, I don't think, here with if I attack and my opponent removes these during combat with some trick, they have 1 card I don't know about, then I lose access to casting Necropotence this turn. And I don't like that. So I will. How do I want to do it? I guess the only way to do it. Yeah. There's no sort of like best way to tap my mana here. I'm not going to sack Opposition Agent. It's too important to keep my opponent suppressed, I think. So we'll just do this. Let's get some cards. Necropotence and Force of Will, 2 the classic pairing, yeah? Yeah, so we don't get to see what would have been exiled, like what's been exiled, but we can kind of pretend that these are the 5 cards we would have seen. And obviously we win the game. As I said, it's 3 black win the game, so. Just feels a little too easy to me, I guess. So the bobble thing, maybe the Dismember thing is the way to go. Or, like I said, the one-sided Wrath of God seems pretty good too. Fire Covenant. I am kind of... So when I first built the deck, I actually wasn't using the 2 baubles and the pedal. I wasn't using those 3 cards. I was using just Nihil Spellbomb for that purpose. It's not something that comes up too often, as you can see. More than anything, I wanted the artifact, the graveyard control. yeah, with that in mind, it's very interesting. Fire Covenant, yeah. Sweeps the board, very cheap. It's hard to say no to this, the power of a card like this. You can also, provided you have the life, you can over necro and find this card and then play it during your end step as well if you need to. Card's very, very good. Sweepers are premium effects for, control. Possibly we just don't run the baubles. I don't mind pulling them out. Makes me a little less weak to certain, effects. And then, but I think we do continue to run Lotus Petal just because you can do, fairly broken things with it, and cheating out the Renn a little bit early is pretty valuable. The only other, maybe some other options for consideration might be, cards like Mental Misstep, Gitaxian Probe, Mystic Remora, all the nonsense. But I don't lean that direction. I don't favor that. Let's try this. Let's try the Nihil Spellbomb. I do think that seems really important to have access to. Yeah, Meek Stone. Wow. So I think having access to the Spellbomb's probably too important, and having access to the Vandal Blast is too important, and then that leaves that opening right there where we can, maybe it's not enough to have one sort of Wrath of God effect and we need two. Out of all of the different options that I'm kicking around, I guess the real question is, do I need more artifact kill or creature removal? And the answer is I'm not sure, but I do know that I don't want, well, okay, here's a couple ideas. There's Jessica's Will, which is kind of bonkers with, it's another way to take advantage of Rograkh. That's this card here. So you get mana and cards, sort of like a Ancestral Recall. Card's kind of crazy and lets you do some really gross stuff early on. Mid game, if you have mana and they don't really have much of a hand, you guys are top decking, you can play this to just get 3 cards out of your library and possibly play them. It's once again, it's not great because of that whole problem of like hitting a bunch of counter magic. It's not real card draw, if you will. So that is a bit of a problem, but still pretty solid. Couple of other options. I mean, it doesn't have to be a 3-mana card to begin with, at any rate. But there are a lot of like really good sort of 3-drops that potentially could sort of fit the bill. If only there was like one more Force of Will, then I would play that. But the closest thing to that is definitely the 1 casting cost. This thing, the closest thing to that is definitely Dismember. Very powerful effect. So something like a Kolaghan's Command effect, the Prismari command, seems, that's sort of like the balance, hedging your bets between I want to check something really quick. That's sort of hedging your bets between artifact removal and creature removal, which is what I'm going back and forth with in my head. Let me apply that here. Do I have any surveil here? I don't do any surveilling, right? No, I don't really do any surveilling. I'm curious about, one of the cards that I'm considering too is I think it's an uncommon. It's a double impulse. It's a sorcery, which we don't like, but it's kind of crazy how much value it provides. It's 2 and a blue, and you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you pick 2 and you keep them. So there's that thing. So really, like, do I need more card draw? Do I need more removal? What exactly do I want to do with this slot, right? I could put in Sword of Feast and Famine, and then I have like something that can take advantage of Rograkh. Works great with Winter Orb. Allows me to chip away at my opponent's hands so that it's hard for them to store up cards for a big explosive combo turn that kills me. It solves that problem. There is Vedalken Shackles, but I'm not configured with enough islands to take advantage of it. So right now I have the blue-red and blue-black islands, and that's it. I just have 4 islands. I don't really want to add more. I don't even have a basic island in here, which could be going a little too far, and I don't have the Mystic Confluence in here as well. But don't feel comfortable with it coming into play, and with such a low island count, it's not a exceptionally like valuable card here. There is Sinnoh and Steel, which is destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and artifact, and Fire and Ice if I want to like kill creatures and draw extra cards. So the swords are all pretty interesting, just because they're good with Rograkh. Outside of that, there isn't. Palantir would be a great card if the format wasn't a 40 life format. You'd probably play that. So anyway, outside of that, I'm not sure if there's a 3-drop in particular that I'm drawn to. That's a weird one. I'm not sure why I have that. One card I had considered at one point was Arena of the Ancients, only because in general I like, but that made more sense to me in the Rograkh Tevish Zot deck, where I didn't really care about attacking too often by the time this comes down, and has the potential to lock down a lot of nonsense. So it's possible that what goes in here in that exact slot is just plain and simply Heuristic Study. That's some more big hoser, anti-combo, very good for reload. Just in general, it's just quite strong. I am mostly kicking that around. If Hull Breacher was legal, we would play it in that slot without even thinking about it. There is Fabricate to go get Demonic Tutor, but I need to go get Soul Ring, but I think Tezzereth's replaced Fabricate in terms of value. So, not as important. Yeah, overall, I would say yeah, the real question truly becomes, what do I need? What problem is it that I want to solve with this slot? Because, you know, it can be anything. It can be counter magic. It can be whatever we want it to be. It can be something like Brazen Borrower, which has some flexibility to deal with certain threats as well as act as pressure for planeswalkers later. So, you know, what problem am I looking to solve? And, you know, with that slot potentially. And the problem here is that I currently don't know, because this is an interesting idea. And in the case that I don't know, then what is the most powerful card I can put into that slot, essentially, that I'm not using, right? And I also don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. I certainly can say that one of the most consistent cards that comes up is in most lists is the 3-mana enchantment. Not Propaganda, but Heuristic Study. This is the card that shows up in most. Basically, blue mages don't pick up a deck without playing this in general. I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, obviously, if I slapped it down there, it literally does nothing. I'd rather have a card that does something like right now rather than maybe in the future. There is Solve the Equation, which is kind of a tutor. An okay tutor. It's like Spellseeker that can get anything, but Time Twister, probably not a card that we want to consider when we're doing things like Thought Seizing. Shauna's Tidebinder can act as a solution to One Ring, or it can completely just screw somebody on Necro. But although it's unlikely that it's gonna resolve and stay on the board if you're facing a Necro. That's the main problem that you would face there. So you know, out of all the different options, honestly, I really don't know. But probably in a vacuum, like with no information at all. Since I don't know how badly I would need a Fire Covenant or not. I'm guessing Sword is probably the card that I'd want to be using. By that I mean Feast and Famine. Because it's a mana source and a disruptive card and makes Rograkh good, but I don't know. I don't know if that's right. It certainly has more it has more like inner deck synergy in the sense that it works very well with Winter Orb. I mean, it doesn't actually have to be a 3-drop either. That's the other thing, is that we could certainly, play something. I have Fabricate if I want to get like more access to the One Ring. That's an interesting one. Fabricate could be the way to go. Another card that I had considered in the past was Fall from Favor. So it taps a creature, you become the monarch, and then that creature doesn't untap until they become the monarch, which can often mean it just doesn't untap ever. And but I'm gonna say out of all the problems that I might be trying to solve, the one problem that can be a real issue and that I might not have a solution for is going to be getting swarmed. Like, that's the kind of thing that you don't have a lot of time to deal with. So I think that the card that I'm going to put in there is going to be Fire Covenant for now. I found that card to be kind of insane. I mean, it's destroy all your opponent's creatures and none of yours. That is a pretty insane effect. So out of all the options that I kicked around, that in terms of the impact that it has on a game is probably the highest among all the different options. And having an extra board sweep in my control deck can't be bad. So let's do that. It lets me sit on a counter spell, and at the end of your turn, sweep your board, and then on my turn, play like a Jace or a whatever, protected Dark Confidant or something. I think overall that's probably going to be the one that I would want the most. I mean, I just went through a list of all kinds of interesting and strong options, but yeah, picking up basically what I've done is I've gotten rid of a little bit of the combo potential with Silas Renn by dropping the baubles. But I did put the Nihil Spellbomb back in the deck. I started with it in the deck, so it's not really much of a change. But basically what we've done is we've replaced the baubles with a mass artifact kill and a mass creature kill. So Wrath of God, Wrath of Artifacts. That seems pretty good for my control deck, right? That seems like where we want to be in a control deck. I think I'm probably happiest with that overall. But now I do have some issues. It can be a problem for my opponent to get what do you call it into play? Enchantments, threatening enchantments into play. I've got Chaos Defiler and possibly the ability to continue to defile with Silas Renn, picking it back up, sacrificing it, some kind of loop there, copying it, and so forth. So Chaos Defiler is my big answer to that, and I don't really have much else to deal with problem enchantments because I'm not playing the Talisman. I think it's called Talisman or Torque. I'm not playing Liquid Metal Torque, so I don't have the ability to turn something into an enchantment into an artifact and then blast it off the board with something. So that may be a reason to consider running the Torque, as having extra mana is always good in your Winter Orb deck, and having the ability to turn something into an artifact is quite good in your Vandal Blast deck or whatever, when you're trying to deal with certain things, or your Duretti or your Dak Faden. For example, Torque Dak Faden is crazy. Torque Copy Artifact is crazy. It's very possible Torque belongs in here, but the next question for that would be, where do I put it? And maybe the answer is the Lotus Petal. Actually, as I'm thinking about it, I will say this. As much as I love how cute it is to loop a Lotus Petal with a Silas Renn, or to get like a sick Lotus Petal start with like first turn Call of the Ring and Rograkh. I very much in my control deck, without Silas Renn, do not like Lotus Petal in a control deck, and I very much do like Torque. So actually, that's the swap, and that is much stronger, I think. And now we're all set. That also gives me another hit on a early start with like an Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, or Mishra's Workshop. It gives me another like thing I can ramp into. You know, I go first turn Workshop, Liquid Metal Torque, tap for 2, cast a Talisman of Dominance, you know, duress you or something like that. I actually like this change quite a bit. I'm pleased with that. That makes a lot of sense in my control deck. And I still have the Nihil Spellbomb for the Silas Renn silliness if we get to some part of the game where that becomes, you know, we're both grinding cards away slowly. That gives me an option. But this feels really good. I think this is a super strong. It's hard not to pick this card up for most of my decks because in general, the upside is adding value to all your artifact removal and disruption, like in your Karns and stuff. And then the downside is very little. Like the other upside, the main upside is that it's a 2 mana artifact source of mana, right? Like it's ramp. And the downside is that it doesn't produce mana of any colors. It's not like it's not a Felwar Stone or whatever, but like, it's still pretty darn good. So I think that's pretty cool. It is interesting. You can Tezzeret this thing. You can like pump it. So if you need to like, if you have a weird turn where you're like, you've Tezzereted in a bunch of mana, and you know you've got this Talisman, just Torque, and they play some threats. You can make 2 things an artifact and then VB off like the board, and you know good things can happen. Say they had 2 Planeswalkers, and you have Karn and Tezzeret. You have your 2 colorless Planeswalkers, and they've got 2 really good Planeswalkers. You can Torque to turn one of them into a artifact during their upkeep and turn it off with the Karn, but you wouldn't be able to do both because you can't untap during your upkeep, right? So it's not as good there, but it gives you some interesting options. Like I said, for a very low cost. This is so close to a keep. Like this is such an insane start. If we had a single black mana, because we would go Fierce, Protected, Necro. Now when we sack, we would lose, but I mean having Fierce and SWAT, but I don't know about keeping that without extra mana. So here, and then look at that. If that was Sword, I do feel, I'm still, Fire Covenant's so good, but like, obviously if this was Sword, you know, we keep this and we get imprinted, ready for wash away, slap the sword down, equip it, and go. But without that being that, I'm not sure that this is particularly. I mean, we can keep Thrasios off the table possibly. We can also sweep. We've got a lot of mana here. We can use Workshop to play Silas, but that doesn't get us too far. I feel like we can do better. This is so much better and yet so much worse. I might just be in mulligan hell here, mulligan death. He's at 6, I'm at 5. I have to get rid of 2 cards. Honestly, like I need to reload. So the 2 cards that I get rid of are actually, weirdly, it's going to be the One Ring. We're going to try to win off Call of the Ring, and this way I'm set. If I can draw a land, right? And if I can't draw a land, then I guess I was never going to win this game to begin with. So more than likely, we would force here, try to hit a land drop, Call of the Ring, and get back in the game is what we're looking at. I don't really see another path to victory here. And this is a very sketchy and tentative path to victory. It's loosely speaking, right? Training Grounds, okie doke. Now the Thrasios Training Grounds is nutty. Alright, we need to hit a land real bad. And we did. Real bad lands, actually. Almost. The Badlands little buddy there. Alright, so let's get, we're going to get blue-black. That's 2 black into play. And that gets us this guy. We gotta hope that they don't have free counter magic. Gotta hope for a lot of things here. But at least there's a, like I said, there's a way forward. So now, if they go for Thrasios, I do kind of have to force that thing, or else it's going to go insane with the training grounds. So we'll force with the Skydiver. Hope that this works. Hope that we find blue. There's a lot of hope here. Okay. So this is what I mean about playing Rograkh. It's like, if you're not playing Rograkh, you just don't get access to this, and then you just can't, you can't compete in the early game. But what am I going to do? Force a Rograkh? Obviously, I'm not going to do that. Alright. So my ring bearer will start drawing the extra cards. And we'll get a land down. I would counter, but my opponent's really strongly incentivized to they're strongly incentivized to spend their mana on training grounds. So what we want to do here is we want to do this, and then next turn hopefully hit a land. We're gonna Jite and then get going. Well, Cradle is going to be a huge problem. Yeah, this is all like real bad. But triple mulligan or whatever it was is always going to be bad. So you know, Rograkh can be the ring bearer. He can't be blocked by Thrasios, so he won't die. And we can use that to hopefully find some land if we need to dig. Alright, well there's access to like more mana possibly. So let's see if we're fighting over this Jite. I cannot sit back and like Confidant and Counterspell against like the Thrasios active. That's not really a route to success, I don't think. So let's try for this Jite. Then my opponent has to spend mana fighting over it. I can fight back, and then from there, yeah. And if they don't, we're gonna go for it and hope that this gets something done. Attack with this. Attack with this. We get to loot. Okay, that's really good. I'm actually going to get rid of the Confidant because I have this running. I need the Counterspell next turn. I want a Covenant next turn. I think it's too important. Alright. So hopefully this Covenant, I mean you can't double block, so I'm not sure what the choice is here. Nah, just don't do that. Okay, so he's gonna use his Cradle before his Rograkh dies. Obviously, that makes a ton of sense. Finds himself that thing, which, you know, at least Jite addresses. And then he finds himself a land, so. Okay. Alright, well, we're gonna shrink this down here to shrink his Cradle mana. And we know SWAT's gone, so he's not gonna like counter shrink, I guess. Alright, we know that the Nantuko is available for my opponent, but at least if my opponent does play the Nantuko, I can immediately deal with it with the last remaining Jite counter. But we also have the Covenant, right? So we have a couple of different possible solutions. Alright, so he's scrying for a Sowing Mica Spawn, broken AF, and a Signet. Okay, so we can get the commander off the board, which will protect us from the free counters, and also turn off the Cradle completely. Leaving my opponent with 4 mana, but for maybe a Myco Spawn, but that's not so bad. Alright, I'll choose... I'm going to attack with Silas no matter what. So I'll make Silas the Ring Bearer, that way I can leave this untapped. So... very nice to see. That solves the shifting woodland as a threat, and I can possibly take my opponent off most of their green mana here. All right, so we'll pitch the opal to the ring trigger. All right. And then when we connect, also, yeah, I forgot about this interaction. Call of the Ring Silas. It didn't really even occur to me how good this would be. But now Silas will allow us to recast the opal. We'll always yield to that, and we'll always yield to this as well. That is pretty awesome. So we'll take advantage of that next turn as well with the Crucible. I'm gonna go after this right now, so that if they have a commander counter, it's gone. Just don't want that on the board at all. Oh no, this is an artifact, so I actually have Mox Opal mana up. That's so good. But yeah, let's take out the Shifting Woodland. So if I don't spend the mana, I can Covenant at the end of their turn. I can sit on a counterspell and Covenant because this is an artifact. And I don't want to... what I would like to do is discard the Crucible to the Silas for more value. And potentially spending 5 mana on their turn is still like a very good use of my mana. So I think that this is fine. If my opponent's only play is Sowing Myco Spawn, which is what I expect, and more than likely he's going to tutor for a land if he makes that play. Okay, Cloud of Fairies is pretty good when you have Gaia's Cradle, but this is just fuel for Covenant. Okay, there's the Myco Spawn. Search your library for a land, you put it on the battlefield tapped. We're going to clear both of this nonsense off. So we know they've got the Springheart and then Tuco. Man, adding the Fire Covenant, as much as I said, boy, wouldn't it be nice if it was a sword. Oh, it doesn't even come into play tapped. Yeah, it's so gross. You just go get like a Strip Mine or something. All right. All right, so black, red, colorless, 1 and 3. Let's rip those out of play and kill that Cradle again, essentially. Hopefully. We'll see. What counter magic is coming? Veil of Summer. Let's stop that. So very glad I went with this play over the Crucible. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I went for that. We clear that off the board. We draw for the turn. We draw again. Gorgeous. We get to draw after attacking and throw away the Crucible. So we throw that away. Then it comes back to our hand. Well, it comes back to being an option that we can cast. We duress our opponent. Cast the Crucible. Play the Wasteland. Wasteland our opponent. Feeling damn good about the game at that point. We have 2 counters on Jitte. Just a beautiful little interaction. So yeah, I'm feeling good about the changes. The last minute changes here feel very good. Feels like, you know, this is what, like I said, we want our control deck to have the ability to gain control and not have to play a 1-for-1 game with every card exchange all the time. If you can't do like some kind of a sweep effect, you know, Mind Twist, Vandal Blast, Fire Covenant, if you don't have something like that, in your control deck, then you've got something of a problem. All right, so Thrasios and Kodama this time. So I did not win the roll again. It would be, you know, most helpful to win the roll here. But here's where we've got like that insane, you know, the workshop payoff. How interesting. I'm not going to counter that if they go Thrasios or something along those lines. So Malevolent Rumble is probably too good. It gives them mana and a card, and my opponent's down to only 3 cards in hand, and I have a way to refill, so I'm willing to take. I got a Petal, the Rumble, the little dork that he doesn't get, and whatever land that my opponent. Yeah, he's digging for mana here. Yeah, and look at this top deck. We go first turn, shop Talisman. Second turn, tap both, slam the ring, tap the ring to draw a card, and then get to work. So sensed weakness, was able to capitalize. Force of will, man, you gotta have them. You gotta have force of wills in this format, I think, or else nonsense. Okay. Speaking of force of will, here look, I've got force of will. I've got an early Vandal Blast. We got creature removal that costs 0 and the possibility to fix our hand a little bit. I think all that is good stuff. Vandal Blast paired with the Winter Orb here is a nice thing to see. Now the bad thing is that I don't have the tri-land in here, the tricolor land, so I can't get Vandal Blast mana plus set myself up for that. What is this? Carpet of Flowers. So funny enough, how much do I care? I actually don't have... I have 4 islands in this whole deck. If I'm just careful, I can just completely work around that. So that's what we'll do. I guess I could have brainstormed here. Now, it is a little bit unfortunate, but I like to keep the brainstorm here in case I need to use it to force a will with. Alright, well, we'll go into their combat phase. We're going to do this now anyway, so let's do it like at a weird time on their turn when they might have F6'd, or they might have be unprepared. Alright, let's brainstorm. Okay, really good stuff here. It doesn't look like we're going to need Vandal Blast. So the Winter Orb, however, is looking quite good actually. Possibly. Anyway, so I want to cycle off the Vandal Blast. We'll go get a Badlands. So the question is, do I want to slam Orb now? And the answer is no. I want to Renand and then Orb in a second. So I probably shouldn't have fetched just that second, because now, well, it's fine. I should have waited though on my fetch line just to have more options, you know. All right, let's slow my opponent down. We'll remand. Very nice. Demonic Tutor, always happy to see. I think this is a really good opportunity to, oh yeah. So we've got, that'll give me access to blue mana. We're going to City of Traders here. We're going to Demonic Tutor here. The question is, are we going to Chrome Mox here or what? So I know we're going to do this. It's basically a lock that we're going to well, we're pretty sure to Orb here, but what I'm thinking about is getting Tezzeret, the new Tezzeret, and then imprinting Daretti actually. Does that make sense? The other option I'm thinking about is imprinting and just playing the ready, and then controlling my opponent's board that way. I think let's think about it a little bit further. So I could get Mox Opal, like if I want to get blue mana, I could get Mox Opal, play the Opal, cast the Winter Orb, I don't have to make it that hard. The other card that I'm really thinking about is Relic of Sauron, actually. Fixes my blue pretty easily. I think I will get that, oddly enough. And then I'm going to slam the Winter Orb. So the plan here is we untap with City of Traders, we draw a card we don't care about that much. We imprint Chrome Mox, City, Mox, and whatever that other card is. Cast Relic, which gets us set up on Mana Drain. We're never gonna, my opponent's not going to Paradise here off of our dime. They're not Carpet of Flowers. Is just not gonna happen for them this game. So there's the Lotus Cobra, and then we'll let them have that, right? But we do need it to ready pretty quick. I guess I knew they had the Lotus Cobra, so I could have thought that through a bit, but there's no guarantee that my opponent has a 3-mana play here that they want to make. And even if they do, it's possible that I just force the will. I don't know if Relic of Sauron was correct here, but I don't think it was like trash. What does this thing do? I don't know. It's a 6-drop. It does something that 6-drops do. That is interesting, but not enough of a threat to waste a Force of Will on. Okay, do your thing. Like I said, if we draw a land here, we can do the Relic, and if we don't draw a land, well, jeez, I'm not exactly pleased with imprinting that. Oh, my count was off anyway. Somehow my count was off by 1. Okay, that's totally fine then. I mean, we're fairly safe here. We're gonna get the ready going soon enough. My opponent may be assuming that I'm like being tricky and holding my islands, but you know, little do they know. I'm not sure what that copies, but nothing on the board. Yeah, I mean that's the best target, but again, not worth forcing. Hopefully this is a non-creature. Yeah, it is. Let's just say no. Lotus Cobra, good as it can be, is not a card that provides mana on a regular basis, so just like the Paradise over there is not providing mana, so it's not as scary as like you might think. I'm gonna untap. Yeah, I'll untap this one. It's fine. I'll take the point of damage. It's not a huge deal. All right. So I never got an imprint for the Mox, but I can eat the Mox with the ready here. I think that's also okay. I'm going to tap that for 2. Dump it. Let's go get ourselves a Blood Crypt. A Relic of Sauron. How's that Carpet of Flowers working out there for you? I am not a fan of crap like this. I'm not a fan of main decking cards that are useless against the wrong color decks, and I'm definitely not a fan of cards that don't even guarantee that they do anything at all. But I know a lot of people are, and I do understand it can be pretty crazy. But okay. So pick up a land, but that doesn't really work great with CEDH traders. It works great with Lotus Cobra. I mean, I do want to smoke the Cobra here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to -1 to target this, and then I'm not going to sack anything, and then it'll just die. Okay, opponent, I guess, misclicked there. It wasn't, they wanted to do things in the other order, and the order didn't. They wanted to pick up the other land and untap the other land. I don't know. Something happened backwards, basically. I don't need to keep dealing damage to myself. I certainly don't need 3 blue. We've got 2 blue right here. That's really nice. So I still think that it's correct to sit on the so this is interesting. My opponent's clearly up to something over there. Maybe I want to wait. I'm very tempted to play the Duretti and just kill their Lotus Cobra, like I said, by targeting it. Then they attack with both. I'm going to chump the other Lotus Cobra, and you know, Duretti will lose a counter. But then from there I can plus Duretti to have a blocker for Lotus Cobra, and then it'll minus because of the flyer, and then we get in a situation where we keep doing that until something changes. But I mean, there's a good chance that at some point here my opponent's going to try to run something down. I'd like to have a little bit more mana like available to me. But maybe, you know what, I think I will go for this play. So we'll target this, and we'll sacrifice nothing. Because they just picked the land up. So I know that what I've done is I've taken away one of their mana for next turn. And it is, like I said, it's a bit of a bummer here. They're going to attack Duretti, and I've got to kill Rograkh, but that's okay, I think. What is the big play here? Oh, okay. I don't know. Okay. We've got 5 mana this turn. Divided Halfling, I'm not forcing that. I got a Duretti on board. Mr. Cromora, not forcing that. I don't think that that's great under a Winter Orb. Does suck that my opponent will have the ability to, you know, get some extra cards possibly, but it's fine. Not attacking with the flyer here seems like a huge mistake. Okay, I will untap my blue here just in case I need like double blue and single blue for some reason. I don't know what my next draw is going to be. And point of damage isn't going to matter. Alright, there's a Remora in play. Unfortunately, I didn't play the Chrome Mox like I had planned to do. last turn. I really kicked around whether or not I wanted to just throw it into play just to have access for Duretti, but I did not. So with the halfling in play, I've got something of a concern now. Is this a huge threat? I'm not sure that it is. There might be something that my opponent can play that is a big threat. What does this cost? 2. Just checking. So one of the things that I can do is I could cast Silas Renn, and I could sack Silas Renn. It gets around the Mystic Remora clause because it's a creature. And then I could sack Silas Renn and kill the Delighted Halfling, for example. Or the Breeze Caller. Or we can set up I may have to give my opponent a card with my Force of Will. It's a nasty, like 3-for-1 exchange that I don't love, but it would protect Duretti, and then with a protected Duretti, I can clean up the bullshit that's in play, and also I've got this 1 ring here to reload at some point. So yeah, I wish I had played that Chrome Mox. That's all right though. All right, so what are they picking up? They're untapping Shifting Woodlot. They can Phantasmal Image. Not really sure. Okay. The Breeze Caller, Lotus Cobra interaction, the Halfling, all that stuff's a bit of a problem. The Halfling I can't force, you know, if it's a legend, but the only legend I really see that's a threat is this thing. And it looks like, well, we're about to find out if that was how much of a mistake that might have been. A lot of mistakes. Wish I had the Chrome Mox, but alright, so whenever another permanent you control enters, if it wasn't put on the battlefield with this ability, put a permanent with equal or lesser mana from your hand. So you can put an equal or lesser mana to a 0-drop into play. I'm not sure that matters too much. Yeah, we'll just kill that thing. Yeah, I was gonna take that trade in a second. Okay. We're going to kill Kodama. I don't have any more lands that are not, like, I will eventually trigger this thing, so it's an unfortunate situation for me. So there is a trick I can do here where I sack the Winter Orb to kill Kodama, and then attack with Silas. My opponent would be strongly encouraged to take the trade with their Lotus Cobra, but is that really the case? I'm not sure that that's super. I'm not sure how true that is, just because of the fact that what I was thinking is then I'd pick up the Winter Orb and replay it, but not with the Mystic Remora in play. The Mystic Remora is just an annoying problem here. So let's just smoke this thing. Pongify. Okay. And I suppose I can kill my commander here. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll go commander for commander. That's pretty fine. Unfortunately, the fairy does get the Duretti cleared out. And Mr. Kimura is over there being annoying. I can't deploy any mana, and I can't. I'm going to sit on my counter, though, because, you know, I have the ability to fetch and force if I really wanted to. That thing's going to have to die here soon enough. Yeah, sure. You're stalling. You're stalling. Not the World War II guy, but you know, stalling for time. So these can't really swing since my opponent gave me a 3/3, but you know, they've got the breeze color. The Duretti will die. It is unfortunate. Okay. Remora is gonna go away soon enough. What does this cost? 2? I think that playing this, does it make any sense? It doesn't get me a ton of value here. I don't want to have to sack the Delta if I need to mana drain. I'm not sure like what the Rograkh here would actually accomplish. My instincts are that my opponent's not going to give me a mana drain target this turn. And that's probably true. So just having it in play now rather than later has, you know, some value. I just don't know how much I'm going to regret not having it in play. And I do know that I don't want to sack this Delta. I don't want to miss an opportunity to drain if I need to use it. There is some crazy world where I would... Okay, let's see what's going on here. Tap target land, pick up a land, sure. I mean, the Remora is getting more and more expensive. So this is buying me time to fill my hand up with gas. This is not like infinitely sustainable. Opponent's out a Lotus Petal now. They're going to be out a Remora in a second. If it doesn't happen this turn, it's still okay. We just got to be patient. That's why I was thinking about playing the Rograkh. But again, if I played the Rograkh here and then they played a spell that I needed to counter, like say they let it go and then cast a big spell, I would have to sack this for an island and then I'd be charging up that thing. So I'm okay with this destroying that essentially and just leaving this as an emergency. Okay. What is the point of all this? My opponent's like, I can't let him play magic. I need to stop him. But this doesn't stop me. This just stalls. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. +1/+1. When a land enters, you may pay 2 to create a token of it. How are you going to do that under a Winter Orb? Is it because you're going to play the land and then you're going to get the mana? You're going to pay 2, right? Like, how's that going to work? And then you'll get more and more land mana. I mean, I could mana drain this, give my opponent a card. I just don't think that has enough impact. I could be really wrong here. Tez, so like one more turn, we have all the mana we could ever want. Yeah, just be patient. Now I can counter with a mana drain without giving my opponent a card if I have to. Alright. So the Remora's gone. Its tyranny is over. He gets nothing from that. So he does get the ability to play land and then make an extra Lotus Cobra. But I don't know how far ahead this gets my opponent. Under a Winter Orb. Okay. I get a mana of a color. I can't say multiple Lotus Cobras with this breeze color is certainly problematic, right? So I definitely like is on the fence with that. Good night, man. with letting that go. What a slog. Okay, we can finally make plays again. There we go. Alright. Pre-combat, we are going to use the Mana Volt. Use Mana Volt to play Tezzeret. We're going to untap the question is, do I want it to for the Soul Ring, or do I just want to untap this thing? Tap for 3, play the Jitte. So if I grab the Soul Ring, we're going to charge up the Tezzeret pretty well here this turn anyway. So I think it's fine. We'll just untap this guy. It's basically free. Now I can clear off all the bullshit happening over there, and then I think we got the game won. So. And if I'm really concerned about it, I could if I was really concerned about it, I could play this Chromox for 0 just to put a charge counter on Tezzeret. But I don't see a swing back being a huge problem here. All right, I appreciate the 3/3 that you donated. All right, let's deal with this Breeze Color. I think has proven to be something of an issue. And of course the Cobra. So they can hit this for 4, but that's not enough to do too much. We'll go ahead and put it on, what, 6 counters for now. I'll hold on to this 3, 4. I don't see them killing it, so. And if I really wanted, I could throw Rograkh in the way, but this way, we actually don't need to go get Soul Ring with it. What we want to do is pump the 1 ring more than likely next turn, as opposed to getting a Soul Ring. Yep. 3, 4, 5 mana, 6 mana, 7 mana is what my opponent can have if they get so this plus City of Traders, so 3, 4, 5, City of Traders 6, 7, Cobra Trigger is 8. So we actually cannot let them have this card. Because he'll have an uncounterable Fat Stack, an uncounterable Kodama. Yeah. So it sucks that I had the Mana Drain a 1-drop as opposed to the thing that would come after it, but sucks that my opponent has a 1 ring too, but again, if I didn't do that, then he just gets the giant Kodama. Now with the 1 ring, it's bad news and everything, but we can keep pace and we can clear out some of this garbage. So in general, I think we're fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so opponent could like take some counters off of this or whatever. But then next turn, we draw a card there. We get to well, my opponent says 2 locked up, and that's bottom line. That's exactly what it was. We get to clear off most of his nonsense thanks to the power of Umezawa's Jitte, and we also would get to slam the 1 ring, tap it to draw a card, untap it, tap it to draw 2 cards, clear some, like I said, clear some of his guys off with the Jitte, and then if any of those cards are blue, we had a Force of Will still. and then we can play Silas so that my opponent couldn't like swing in. And so, oh no, I wouldn't. Oh no, correction, I would not have been able to jite that turn because my opponent had a one ring protecting his life total. So I would have had to wait a turn. So I would have just kicked back on defense, which is also totally fine. All right, Dragon doesn't look serious, but you know it's 5 colors, and who knows. So we're missing a blue for force, but we've got a pretty great start here where Rograkh is going to act as a Mox. So let's get that going. And I think what I want to do is mana drain. It puts me in the safest position, and then I can mana drain into the one ring. My other option here is to go get just Soul Ring. And then I can go turn 2 Soul Ring, one ring. Yeah, it's got to be Soul Ring. Unfortunately, I would love to get mana drain, but it's got to be Soul Ring. So it shields down for a second, but you know, Soul Ring into one ring is a pretty huge swing. Let's play that. And let's tap this for this guy. So they can mental misstep or force a will or whatever, and I can't fight over it. But if they don't, they probably don't have anything. And there we go. Okay. And then if my opponent has like Mystic Remore or whatever, they can just sit and stare at a dumb card. It's too late. You get one turn to use it. Alright. And if not, then the one ring kills my opponent. The one soul. The double ring is not really recoverable. Alright. What do you have over there? Kodama's Reach and a bunch of just garbage. Okay. And one of those garbage cards was an artifact. So we will... so do I want to get the ready down? I think the ready actually makes the most sense over Karn. Because I can start ticking it up. And because it will then turn on Molten Collapse next turn if I needed to collapse. I mean, I can't possibly imagine what I would need to collapse. This isn't an actual CEDH deck. Now I could have played Karn just to like shut that down so that they couldn't draw a card here, but if I think having an active Duretti is actually more valuable, and later on I can make like 3 copies of whatever with the ready. So I will go ahead and Karn. If I target this, they will sack it, and yeah, I don't need to bother with that. So let's just. I'm not going to play Copy Artifact. I'm actually really tempted to do it, and I almost just did it. But the reason I'm not going to play it is I want to hold up Force of Negation. Okay, my opponent didn't even pick up on what they were supposed to do there, so yeah. Alright, we're going to waste them. And honestly, I'm just going to win our orb here. I'm hoping that this will garner the scoop, but if it doesn't, that's fine. I shouldn't have actually activated my Wasteland. I should have played the Winter Orb passed with the Wasteland untapped, and then whatever land they untap, I would have wasted. But I mean, we're fine. There's always that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would like to take their commander sphere. So I'll play this with kicker. Not because I'm denying them the mana, although, you know, it's... But they can't even tap it in response. And so I can steal the card right now, and then immediately use the card to play Ragavan, and then we'll just strip mine their Vivid Creek. And then what we'll do is we'll turn Winter Orb into a creature and attack them for 2. And the reason we're doing this is because Winter Orb is currently tapping nothing, like this, they only have 1 land. So, but it's locking down 1 of my mana. So by attacking with it, by tapping it, it won't lock down any of my mana. I'm just going to stop looking at their hand and just assume this game's over, but you know, I'll still play as optimally as necessary to ensure that this game is over. Alright, so we do the Winter Orb attack specifically for that reason right there, to get both of our mana back. So now we can ultimate Karn, but you know, I'll wait 1 more turn. It's totally fine. If I land, I mean, sorry, ultimate the ready, but I'll wait 1 more turn. Yeah, I mean, what's even going on? Why are we still playing? Black and red, huh? Maybe I can get my opponent to concede with this. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there we go. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we're gonna mind twist more than necessary. I mean, I'm not gonna blow it all into the mind twist, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. We got 6 mana, so we twist all that away. Tap the land, play the commander sphere. Probably at this point, it's safe to. I'll leave the copy artifact, like, and it's probably safe to slap the copy artifact into play, like pre-com. We'll copy the Soul Ring, then mind twist my opponent and play the Mana Vault. So that would get 3 cards out of my hand, which would leave me with 1 more than I need, and I would have to discard. And that's fine. So we would throw away, like, probably Necropotence. It's super redundant and useless with the One Ring running. Plus up Karn again and attack them with the Winter Orb, because again, they only untap 1 land. We could attack 3, so we would have tapped all our mana this turn. And then you know, and then even though I would have used my copy on the Soul Ring, I have the ready that can sacrifice the One Ring if it becomes inconvenient, which it slowly is, or we can Karn it into a creature and find a way to do something about it that way. Plus, the ready can actually get rid of it on both sides, so you can -2 to get rid of it, and you can -6 to get rid of it. But more than likely, we would prefer to -6 and get like 3 copies of either Commander Sphere or Soul Ring, just so that we had never had to think about mana ever again. Although we're pretty much there. And anyway, that's it. So I think that'll do for the day. So today's results were flawless victory. Flawless victory. Very interesting. I wasn't actually expecting to make changes to the deck, but I actually feel good about the changes that I made to the deck. I think this was correct. I like this. I was a little bit suspicious on how light I was on mass removal for my control deck, and now it feels a lot more balanced. Very pleased that everything came up at various times or would have been useful. I mean, obviously, I had the Vandal Blast in my hand, never had to use it, but you know, that's a good thing. Having the Fire Covenant come up and be useful, as well as, you know, a card that I was going like, man, I'd really love to see a Fire Covenant right now. So that tells me that that's a good change as well. I never was like, God darn, I wish I had an Urza's Bauble. So I'm cool with that being gone. The Lotus Petal thing, it's cool, but it's not that important. I don't think. but picking up the torque and having that flexibility and that power, like with my copy artifact and my Durag and my Dak Fade and so forth, I think that makes a ton of sense. And also, it's just one more artifact that can be used to pay for the overload cost of Vandal Blast in a game where maybe you're using it to Vandal Blast away a non-artifact, like maybe you turn their Mystic Remora into an artifact and you VB it off the board, or maybe you use it to power up the, maybe they've got tons of targets and you just use it to pay the overload cost. But in general, that seems like a good flexible card to put into my control deck as well. And overall, I'm pretty pleased. Like, this card essentially is functioning as enchantment control, as another form of enchantment control, because it can combine with, you know, like I can make a Ristic Study into an artifact, and then I can like back fade it. We can set that kind of stuff up, or like just turn it into an artifact, turn it into a creature, and then rollick it off the board. You know, stuff like that. So I think that's actually really cool, but we don't really want specifically enchantment removal because there's no enchantment removal that's good enough where I would like specifically run it within these colors. You know, the sorcery that costs me life and kills a creature or enchantment, not really good enough. We need to be killing like artifacts and stuff. I mean, Molten Collapse can take care of one cost enchantments. I didn't actually think about it during that game, but I could have used, had I gotten like a Tutor or a Molten Collapse in my hand, I could have used my fetch land to go get my Underground and then Molten Collapsed away because it'll kill a 1 mana non-creature, non-land permanent. So I could have used this to then Molten Collapse away the Carpet of Flowers while also killing one of his creatures. So had I thought about what my options were a little bit more carefully, that is certainly one of them. But overall, very pleased with how the deck went, and what I got to demonstrate a lot of the interesting things that it can do. It's very much a control deck and a lot of fun to play. A little bit different, a lot different than playing like combo in these colors, but a lot more true to form of what this channel's about. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and if you're a longtime fan of the channel, you are probably a control enjoyer. And so I offer this to you as a possible option for you to add to your toolkit from among the various options that I've presented over the last few weeks as I've looked for something that could compete with Silas. And I think, you know, like I said, that this might be the way to do it. So we will see. What time will tell. I didn't get any semi-mirror matches. You know, I didn't get to play against like combo decks. I didn't get to play against the Silas combo deck, and I didn't get to play against the other partners, the black-white and blue-red 4/4 flyer, the 2/2. I didn't get to play against that combo deck either. Not that I'm like eager to play those decks. I don't enjoy those battles very much, but I do think it'll be interesting for the channel when that comes up, so that you can see, you know, how we do in those matches, and if we lose, why did we lose? If we win, what was key, and that kind of thing. But overall, I think, like I said, we're pretty well positioned, and we should have more to come. So that's all I've got for today, though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.